Volume 1, The Bloody Battle in Taiwan. Prologue. Trip to Taipei. You are here to cause trouble. You are here to cause trouble. She will be beaten to death. Click, click, beat her to death. Beat her to death. Kill her. Go back. Taiwan is going to... Mother Selen, Taiwan is not China's, do you hear me? Taiwan is not China's. Waves of anxious and noisy noises trembled outside the window. The dark crowd held green protest signs and shouted excitedly, blocking most of the street. The golden morning light in the sky poured down from the bamboo-like buildings like rain, blending with the red sun. Under the bright sun, a 50-year-old man wearing a peaked cap was waving his fists wildly, with a ferocious edge in his eyes. He choked viciously. Hurry and grab that mainland woman and beat her to death. Don't let her escape. Before he finished speaking, a hand in his hand the full bottle of mineral water was thrown out, drawing a miserable parabola in the air and accurately hitting the center of the crowd, a thin woman's forehead. With a pop of red plum blossoms, the woman immediately covered her face and squatted down in pain. Several police officers wearing reflective vests pushed through the crowd and struggled to pull the thin woman to the side of the road. The excited Green Camp people chased after her with loud shouts and curses, pushing and pulling with the police officers. A man in a green shirt with political slogans all over his body suddenly lifted his leg from the gap between the people and kicked the woman's, but hard. His spittle flew and he cursed, "You fucked up mainland bitch. Go back to China?" The woman was caught off guard and was kicked. She groaned in pain and fell to the ground. Her face and hands were all stained with blood from the rough cement road, but she did not dare to cry. She wiped her tears and reluctantly got up. She did not even dare to look back and limped towards the corner of the street. Her back in the sun looked particularly low and panicked. When the reporters and anchors who had been waiting on the street for a long time saw this, they excitedly blocked the way with cameras and microphones, trying to conduct a live interview with the woman. However, they were blocked by a man who rushed out from the corner. The man cursed at the woman in a vicious voice, grabbed the woman's panicked little hand, hurriedly turned around the corner, and disappeared from everyone's sight as quickly as possible. It's noisy outside. What are they doing? The lazy sunshine shone on Yu Xiaocheng's angular face. He half squinted his eyes and saw the noisy scene outside the bus through the glass of the bus. He couldn't help but hold his breath. He suddenly saw the nearest green sign clearly saying Taiwan, China, one country on each side, in large traditional Chinese characters, and the word China was marked with a big X with a red marker. A bunch of bastards. A bastard of bitches. Completely irritated by the words on the green sign, the waves in Yu Xiaocheng's veins rolled up and roared with furious winds. The bloody flame wind traversed the emotions of history and violently bombarded his chest. His shoulders trembled involuntarily. If it were not isolated by the glass of the bus, the anger in his heart would have driven him to rush out of the car and smash the green sign to pieces. He is a young man who has just left the ivory tower. He is from Jiangsu and majored in civil engineering. He is a typical engineering man. Although he has been working for 2 years, he still has the virility and cynicism of a student. In the year of graduation, unlike other students who rush to design institutes or supervision companies or even take civil service examinations, he had a natural yearning for construction sites and stubbornly believed that only in a construction company can he quickly transform book knowledge into work experience in the fastest and most intuitive way. However, what he didn't expect was that the hard work and hardship of working in a construction company was far beyond his imagination. Not only did he stay at the construction site every day, eat and sleep in the open, the working hours were very long, and there were no holidays or weekends at all. Sometimes he even had to stay at the construction site for a month or 2 to get a vacation. However, all this was nothing. What really bothered him was that it was difficult to fall in love and start a family. Although he has a well-proportioned and strong figure of 1.78 meters, with very beautiful bronze muscles all over his body, plus the unique, elegant, and handsome facial features of Hollywood sportsman Keanu Reeves, melancholy eyes, straight nose, sexy thin lips, and sharp chin, he should have become the Prince Charming that girls are obsessed with. However, after joining the job, his social circle was extremely narrow. The work location is extremely unstable. After a project is completed in 1 or 2 years, he has to rush to other places nonstop, or even continue construction on new construction sites in other provinces. Several girlfriends he dated fell through after only a few months. The shortest one lasted 3 weeks, and the longest only lasted 7 months. No girl is willing to entrust her life's important events to a boy who is extremely lacking in stability. He does not regret his choice when he graduated, but this problem faced by all architects makes him often confused and anxious about the future. In order to relieve the pressure, he spent all his vacations on traveling, diluting the troubles and unhappiness in reality by wandering in the magnificent Chui Wei Mountains and rivers. Spending his 23rd birthday on this trip to the Treasure Island was a trip he had planned long ago last year. It should have been a very joyful thing, but he didn't expect to encounter these Green Camp violent elements on the streets of Taipei. The disgusting green slogans made him feel like there was a surge of anger in his heart, and his body was like a barrel ready to explode at any time. This is the Dark Green Camp's campaign for the Taipei City Council election. The one who was beaten was a mainland bride. Her brain was damaged. At this time, she ran over to choke and make a scene. Wasn't she seeking death? Fortunately, her husband rushed her away in time. Otherwise, she would have been beaten to death. The Taiwanese female tour guide next to the car door curled her lips disapprovingly and glanced at the nervous and angry mainland tourists in the car with a complex expression. She suddenly remembered something, turned her head and said to the driver, "Yunjiang, driver, there are so many people in Green Camp. This road will definitely not be accessible. We have to go around it quickly, otherwise it will be terrible if they see mainland tourists in the car coming to cause trouble." The driver felt nervous after hearing this, nodded and said, like, "Ruanjai, I know." He turned the steering wheel and tried to turn the bus around. It quickly circled between the gaps in the buildings and was about to head to the side road soon, but at this time there was a noise. The yelling Green Camp people had discovered this tour bus full of mainland tourists and immediately became excited like hungry wolves smelling blood. As a convulsive scream broke the silence, the commotion of the crowd surged up like a boiling wave. The man in a green shirt with political slogans all over his body was the first to rush to the bus. He kicked the door with his feet in excitement, spraying violent and ferocious flames on his face. He yelled ferociously, "Selen's mother-in-law is here to cause trouble again. How great is it if you have money? Swinging shrimp, what? If you have the guts, get off the bus." An old woman with silver hair squeezed out next to the man in a green shirt. She grinned her dirty yellow teeth and said nothing. She raised her green sign and slapped the bus window hard. The bang, bang, bang made the bus bodies shake slightly. The mainland tourists in the bus had never seen such a battle before. They didn't know how to react. They were dumbfounded. The entire carriage was silent and so quiet that it made people breathless. The Taiwanese female tour guide standing at the front of the bus saw that the situation was out of control and was frightened. She patted the driver's seat with trembling hands and urged him to reverse the car and leave this place of trouble. But it was already too late. More and more people from the Green Camp surrounded her. Curses came like a boiling tide. After several struggles within the crowd, the bus had to stop. The 50-year-old man wearing a peaked cap had squeezed to the side of the bus at some point, slamming the window with his thick palms, grinning his teeth and desperately extending his middle finger to Yu Xiaocheng in the car, and loudly shouted vulgarities in Hokkien. Looking at the old man's rough face with wrinkles and bumps worn by time so closely at that moment, Yu Xiaocheng felt as if his chest, where the blood was surging, had been hit hard by some hard object, causing his heart to spasm and tremble with pain. The blood was rolling like boiling water, and the small drum in his chest was beating loudly. If this were his hometown in Changshu, he would not hesitate to jump out of the car and punch the old man in the face hard one after another, watching the blood from his nostrils. Lips and corners of his eyes spurt out at the same time, like falling raindrops floating all over the sky. At that moment, he especially wanted to shout and ask this old man, "You also have the blood of the Chinese in your body. Why? Why are you so hostile to China than that evil neighbor with blood on his clothes? And you are so angry that you are so angry. He did not roar because this was in Taiwan, an island that, although it has been an integral part of China's sacred territory since ancient times, is now separated from the mainland of the motherland. It is a so-called remote island that has become free enough after democratization to allow such miscellaneous ideas as splitting China to exist. He knew that this old man could only answer him with more intense insults and shouting, but a big question mark began to slowly creep out of his heart. All of this, the face of the old man in front of me. When did it start happening? How did it happen again? Can anyone tell me the real answer? He was shaking with hatred. His hands tightly grasped the armrests of the seat, and his nails carved bloody marks on the flesh of his palms. The crowd outside the car became more and more excited. People slapped the car body vigorously. Some even wanted to find rocks to smash the door. Seeing this, other violent elements shouted and cheered like chicken blood. At this critical moment, the police finally rushed over and pushed these emotional green camp people away to make a passage for the bus. The bus driver saw the opportunity and hurriedly turned the steering wheel to get away from the crowd and quickly turned to the side road. When the Taiwanese female tour guide saw that the bus was finally out of danger and entered a safe street, her heart hanging in her throat was finally relieved. She secretly wiped a handful of sweat. Seeing that the tourists on the bus were still in shock and panic, she stood up quickly and comforted her loudly. Don't panic, everyone. We are far away from those green camp people. We will not run into them again when we get on the road. We are safe now, so we can relax. As long as we follow this avenue all the way, we can get out of the city very quickly, and we can reach Yalu Scenic Area in about an hour. Yesterday, we visited the Taipei Museum, and today Yalu Scenic Area is the most interesting stop of our trip to Taipei. It is located in Yelio Village, Wanli Township, Taipei County, protruding out of the sea. A promontory on the surface has experienced long-term wave erosion, rock weathering and crustal movement, etc., forming various strange and charming geological and sea erosion wonders such as sea caves, candle-shaped rocks, mushroom-shaped rocks, tofu rocks, honeycomb rocks, potholes, dissolution discs, queen's heads, fairy shoes, candlestick stones, etc. The panic and fear of the tourists slowly disappeared. Although the unpleasant scene happened, everyone seemed to just regard it as a small episode and consciously chose to forget it. Some people even took advantage of their free time to start cheering and let the beautiful Taiwanese female tour guide sing in Hokkien to cheer everyone up. The rest of the people applauded desperately, and laughter flew inside and outside the car again, as if nothing had ever happened before. But for Yu Xiaocheng, how could the scene he encountered with the violent elements from the green camp never happen? He couldn't forget and would never forget that moment. Through the glass of the bus, the old man's face was twisted ferociously, and he hit the window hard with his middle finger. His fierce and vicious eyes could wake him up even in his dream. Hey, handsome boy, why are you still sitting there? Don't you want to play with everyone? A soft and crisp voice suddenly rang in his ears. Yu Xiaocheng was stunned for a moment. He woke up from his muddy thoughts and raised his head in surprise. What he saw was a delicate and beautiful face. It was the face of a Taiwanese female tour guide full of curiosity and doubt. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, leaned back, scratched his hair in embarrassment, and peeked around with the afterglow from the corner of his eyes. He found that the car was empty. Even the driver had already got out of the car, and they were the only two people left in Nuada's car. He couldn't help but lost his voice. This is the scenic spot? The Taiwanese female tour guide pursed her lips and said with a smile, Of course we have arrived at the scenic spot. Look, everyone is waiting for you. Let's go and play together. As she said this, she pointed to a strange rock on the beach outside the window. A group of tourists on the edge of the rock were waving to this side excitedly, shouting something unknown. Okay, then we have to get off the car quickly. Yu Xiaocheng was quickly infected by the beautiful and optimistic smile of the Taiwanese female tour guide, and his dull mood cleared up. The sky was clear. He simply packed his bag and turned around to follow the female tour guide out of the car, running towards the group of tourists, one after another. But they had just run more than 20 meters when a gust of dirty wind suddenly blew out of the sea, roaring and beating on the beach. When they got close, the sand suddenly rolled up in the sky with a roar, making the whole air turbulent in the blink of an eye, and engulfed him and the beautiful female tour guide without a trace. Yu Xiaocheng had never thought that the sea breeze would be so strong. He was caught off guard and was knocked to his feet. His bag dropped to the ground, and his body almost fell to the ground. Suddenly, a lot of fine sand was poured into his mouth and nose. What was worse was that sand also entered his eyes, which made him extremely sore. He had to stop in a hurry and protect his eyes tightly with his hands to prevent sand from blowing into him again. The time that was flowing smoothly seemed to have stopped at that moment. In a daze, he felt his brain was dizzy. The strong wind in his ears suddenly stopped roaring like magic, but the surroundings were still white and hazy. He could not see his fingers when he stretched out his hand, and there was no trace of the Taiwanese female tour guide. He felt like a blind man stumbling around in this dirty and confusing white mist, constantly calling out anxiously, "Miss Tour Guide, Miss Tour Guide?" He didn't know how long he screamed, but no response was heard from around him, as if he was in a deserted place. At the same time, the beautiful female tour guide was also calling out anxiously. The mysterious sea breeze came and went quickly. When she ran out of the eroding wind, she found that the tourists on the beach were staggering and in a mess. When she looked back, she found that the handsome mainland boy could no longer be found, except for the toilet bag left on the ground. One day in the spring of 2011, a young and handsome mainland boy disappeared somewhere in Taipei County. When the Taiwanese female tour guide who last saw him was questioned by the police, she also looked at a loss and could not explain the reason for the disappearance of the mainland boy. Some people speculated that the mainland boy was blown into the sea by strong winds, while others speculated that the boy quietly left the tour group and fled while the strong wind was strong in order to sneak into Taiwan. There are various theories, and the boy's disappearance eventually became a difficult mystery that troubled the Taiwanese police. When the dirty sea breeze surrounded Yu Xiaocheng, he felt a huge force lifting him into the air. His whole body suddenly lost balance, as if he was drowning. Just when he felt inexplicable panic, a vicissitudes and majesty voice from the depths of his brain suddenly sounded. "Child, if you want an answer, I will give you the answer." Chapter 1: Encounter in the Bamboo Forest. Yu Xiaocheng finally walked out of the mysterious and confusing white fog, but he was surprised to find that the place he was in was no longer a beach, but a bamboo forest where the morning fog had just dispersed. With the breeze blowing, the green bamboos all over the mountain began to sway gently, making a graceful, rustling sound, just like a girl stroking the strings of a piano. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and felt a stream of fresh air flowing straight into his lungs. He felt an indescribable, refreshing feeling all over his body. Although he didn't know why he suddenly came to this beautiful bamboo forest, he was attracted by the beautiful scenery in front of him. While walking there, he felt as if he had stepped into a fairyland, a picturesque and romantic and intoxicating feeling. However, he had not walked far in the forest when he heard a cry from in front of the bamboo forest. The cry seemed extremely sad and mournful, which made him surprised. He just wanted to ask where he was and why a gust of wind had brought him here. When he walked out of the bamboo forest, he saw a young girl squatting on a winding path beside the forest. She was wearing a long floral coat and a plain skirt, with a big black shiny braid, beautiful eyebrows, red lips, and white teeth. She was only 15 or 16 years old. The cry came from her. Next to her, a little boy of 13 or 14 was standing at a loss and didn't know where to go to comfort her. Just listen to the young girl crying miserably. "Brother, the Japanese ghosts are coming to kill one Taiwanese soon. Grandpa, Grandma, and brother may die. If he dies, one will not live alone. You will be the only one left. What should I do? What should I do? What about life and death?" Yu Xiaocheng was very confused when he heard it. He was about to step forward to ask, but his left leg had just stepped out, and before it landed, his whole body froze because he suddenly noticed the naughty-looking little boy with a smooth forehead and a brain. There was a messy little braid hanging from the back, which was randomly stained with fine leaves and grass stalks. The black and white patches were covered with dirt. It was as dirty as a little tabby cat, but it looked nonchalant. A green dragon just crawled out of the nose and immediately sucked it back in. Seeing this scene, Yu Xiaocheng's brain suddenly buzzed. What is going on? Are you filming costume scenes? This kid is too dedicated to filming, isn't he? Could it be that in Taiwan, retro style is popular even in the countryside? He stopped and carefully looked left and right, but he couldn't see any camera crew hiding in the dark. However, he would rather believe that this was a costume scene than some retro trend. Having pigtails these days for men and women would make people lose their temper. He leaned against a green bamboo and watched for a long time, wanting to wait for the costume scene to be filmed again, but he didn't expect to wait for less than a minute. The little boy accidentally raised his head and glanced at him, suddenly let out a scream, and said in a trembling voice, "Sister, sister, there is a foreigner hiding in the bamboo forest watching Juan. So, he looks like a Japanese ghost." When the young girl heard the little boy scream, she couldn't help but startled. She turned her head and glanced towards the bamboo forest. Sure enough, she saw a young man with a shaved head. She couldn't help but screamed in fright. She touched a stone as big as a brick on the ground and stood up, with a look on her face. He didn't even have time to wipe away his tears and shouted loudly with a cry, "Don't come here. The Taiwanese people will not give in to you. And Japanese ghost." As he said this, he tightly protected the little boy behind him and whispered, "Brother, run quickly. Sister, try your best to hold off the Japanese ghost to prevent him from chasing you." The little boy was so nervous that his little face turned white. He grabbed the corner of the young girl's clothes tightly and said in horror, "Sister, what should you do?" When the young girl saw that Yu Xiaocheng seemed to be coming forward, she couldn't help but feel a little anxious. She kicked the little boy and urged, "Brother, don't worry about Juan. You run first. Sister, I'll follow you right away." The little boy was